Hello and welcome to the Week 3 edition of the Survivor Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by Steven Andrus, and we have survived so far, at least I have, in the big Survivor contest out here in Las Vegas. Steven, I think we've kind of talked through the process pretty well. There's a plethora of options this week. That being said, we're going to try to talk through the strategy with you guys as to why maybe you want to look elsewhere on some of these big favorites. And really and truly, that starts Thursday night, right? San Francisco 49ers are big 10-point favorites over the New York Giants without Saquon Barkley. That's going to be at least a consideration for some people out there, but we get going. 7.5-point favorites are the Ravens over the Colts. 6.5-point favorites are the Dolphins over the Broncos. You go a little bit further, the Jags are 9.5 over the Texans. You scroll down a little bit further. If you didn't use the Bills last week, the Bills are 6.5 over the Commanders. Seahawks are 6 over the Panthers. 12.5 Chiefs over the Bears. 12 Cowboys over the Cardinals. And then if you're getting a little wild and crazy out there, the Eagles and the Bucks, that game's sitting 5.5. So, Steven, it's this, depending on which pool you're in, depending on the size of your pool, and depending on who you have left, there are all kinds of options and all kinds of strategies this week.
Yeah, first of all, feeling pretty fortunate personally, just blindly fading the Cardinals the first 2 weeks and somehow still being alive here. So that's been nice to still be having an entry, because I thought I was going to lose in week 1, and then I thought I was going to lose in week 2 with the Giants almost laying an egg there. So this week, I don't think we have much to worry about against the Dallas Cowboys, to be honest with you, if you're going with the just fade the Tankazona Cardinals this year. But then you have to burn a really good team if you're going to do that. So I think, Matt, maybe we start with the teams in this top tier who have an implied win percentage of 70% or better that we're most worried about, to put it.
Yeah. Well, let's look at it this way. Two teams, I think, just off the bat, if you're playing in the big Circa contest, first and foremost. So San Francisco and Dallas are two of the teams that play on those little short weeks that you have to play in the contest. So I understand they are very tempting this week. I would just say, keep in mind, you would be burning a team that you would either need to use on Thanksgiving or use on Christmas. And so for me, those teams, their value is so exponentially high that I have to immediately cross them off the list. Now, if you're playing a different pool out there, that there isn't the little mini contest and the little mini weeks in between. Yeah, I mean, let's start at the top. Kansas City against Chicago. What are you going to say that talks bad about Kansas City in this game against Chicago? Chicago looks like they're completely broken, just like last year, but games against the Jets, 2 games against Denver. You got games against Vegas. Like, there's all kinds of ways that you can use the Chiefs moving forward.
Absolutely. I think, future value there applies as well. Even if you aren't in the Circa contest, I would put them in the same category as the Cowboys and 49ers in terms of, bullets I want to keep in my arsenal for down the road, just considering the long list of options we have here in week 3. If it was a shorter list of options, maybe feeling a little queasy about what else is out there, that'd be one thing. But I think this week in particular, there's a long list that you could go with. So why not try and pocket those teams for later down the road?
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco, again, guys, like, you can play them, and we're not going to sit here and tell you it's a bad play, right? But what we'll say is, games against Arizona, games against Tampa, games against another game against Arizona. You got a game against the Rams in week 18. Like, there's a lot to look at from that standpoint. You look at Dallas. They get the Rams a couple of times. They get the Rams. They get the Giants. They get the Commanders. They get Carolina. There's just a whole bunch of reasons to hold on to them as well. So this kind of leads me to what I would consider to be the number one choice of the week for me, Steven, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Houston Texans. The Jags, by the way, this past week, that game was there for the taking. Now, I know Kansas City kneeled it down at the end of the game. The score could have looked worse. I get all that, but they wouldn't have had that opportunity to do that if the Jags had kind of capitalized on some of those red zone opportunities that they had down. And look, I get it. Kansas City's defense is playing out of their mind right now. Like, they're balling out. So I understand it's going to be tough to score on them as it is in general, but Jacksonville could have won that game. And so I have no problems playing Jacksonville against Houston. Houston, so many injuries. Offensive line's a mess. They've lost like 3 different safeties already. They've got all kinds of guys going down. So number one with a bullet for me this week is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I do agree with you. They're in my top 2. I kind of have a 1 and 1A this week, but since we're talking about Jacksonville here, you hit the nail on the head. More credit to KC than having any real big concerns with the Jacksonville offense against a lesser defense this week against Houston. And I spoiler alert for the Megapod on Fridays, I did bet the over in this game. So I do think Houston's going to score a little bit of points here against Jacksonville's secondary, but I think this is a get-right game for the Jacksonville offense here. I think they are still one of the top 10 teams in the NFL at this point. Love Doug Peterson with Trevor Lawrence. So the other thing, too, is if you're not going to use them against a team like this, I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to feel great about using them in one of the Tennessee games, considering yet again they are confounding you and me, Matt, and playing above their market grade, it seems. And looking down the road here, I mean, are you going to feel comfortable using Jacksonville against a team like New Orleans or Pittsburgh on the road? Maybe not so much, because they do have at least a couple of deficiencies that would make you nervous, unlike some of the elite teams in the NFL.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you could look down the line and there's a week 17 game against Carolina, but like there were glimpses last night of Bryce Young starting to figure things out. And so by week 17, I just don't want to be worried about maybe this this Carolina team is actually at least league average, and I've saved Jacksonville for that. Look, this is the week to play them. This is the most confident you're going to be in playing them for sure. I mean, I guess if you're talking about it's a 1A, 1B for you, are you speaking more on the Baltimore or Buffalo side of things?
I'm talking Baltimore. I've already used Buffalo, and Buffalo is also less than a touchdown favorite this week. So I think I know there's a greater implied probability that Baltimore gets it done against Indianapolis this week. I don't think there's a big change in terms of win probability if Anthony Richardson can't play and it goes to Gardner Minshew, but I just think, full transparency, I thought that the Ravens were going to have issues with their offense after what we saw in week 1, and hats off to Todd Monken and the Ravens for doing what they did against the Cincinnati Bengals with a depleted roster, mind you. So I expect a more healthier version of the Ravens this week, potentially. If you don't want to make your pick early for Survivor and just want to verify that with the injury report with a couple of the guys in their defensive backfield, a couple of their offensive linemen, then I don't blame you for doing that. But if they are a bit healthier on the injury report, and the Colts also not having a great secondary as well, I think this is the other slam dunk pick here for Survivor this week with Baltimore.
Yeah, the only other place you would, I think, feel super comfortable about using them, and even that, it would be a road games on the road at Arizona. So there is an Arizona game on the schedule for Baltimore, but it's a road game, and the NFL's weird, and road games can be weird, and all of that. So that's at least something to take into consideration. They do at least though have the Cardinals on the schedule for them. Outside of that, Steven, listen, I guess if people want to get wacky, sure. Baltimore, the Dolphins against this, I don't even know what this defense is for the Broncos at this point. Like, yeah, you could do that, but my question would just be more like, why? When you have the Giants coming up, you have Carolina coming up, you have Vegas on the schedule, you got the Jets on the schedule. Like, I don't know why you would do it like against this one, because like of these teams that are underperforming, you have some of the teams that are underperforming way worse even that are still up for Miami. So I just wouldn't go there. I think it's just getting a little too cute.
Yeah, the last thing I'll note here is that, we have access to Pool Genius, our new partner here for the Survivor podcast, and they have an awesome tool where you can pop in the teams that you've already picked this year, and they will map out 2 paths for you. One, the max expected value. So if you're in a really big pool and the goal is just to have the biggest chance of getting to being literally the only survivor and not having to split that money with somebody else, that's one way to look at it. The other is just max survival. So maybe you're in a smaller pool, you just want to get as far as you possibly can and maybe not worried as much about saving some teams. There's a path for that as well. And I will tell you, 2 of the teams we've talked about in this elite tier fall into that max expected value, and the other falls into the max survival. The link is down in the description. We have a great partnership with them. You can check out their options there to try and win your Survivor pool. And also linked down in the description is Mo's weekly win probability tool for Survivor. So 2 awesome assets for you if you're serious about taking one of these pools down.
Yeah, for me, again, of those like kind of off the beaten path choices, I'm not super comfortable in Detroit and Atlanta. I'm not super comfortable in Seattle and Carolina. We've seen a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde of the Seattle team so far this year. So which one's the real version? I don't want to mess around with my Survivor entry to find out. And so I think we're really, depending on the size of your pool and depending on the rules of your pool, I think there are 5 really good choices this week, and getting outside of those 5, I think is just getting a little too cute.
I tend to agree with you. There's going to be so many options of teams that are big favorites on the money line that just by definition, it's going to kind of spread the picks out a little bit. So I don't think you really need to get all that, contrarian and take a Browns against Tennessee after what was one of the more violent games I've seen in some time. So now the Browns are dealing with recovering from that on a short week against a Tennessee team that just can win any given week, it seems, at this point. We've seen that over the past couple of years. Seahawks against Carolina, I think if you're going to go contrarian or teams outside the 70% or higher implied probability would probably be the one I would target here against Carolina because, I don't know what you think. I know you saw glimpses of Bryce Young, but I don't think that's getting fixed anytime soon. So you're really just
he has no weapons, right? That team is just devoid of talent for him from a playmaker standpoint. And so Miles Sanders is past his prime. Obviously Adam Thielen is trying to break in some rookie guys, young guys. It's just, there's just no talent for him. So yeah, I don't hate it, but I guess it's very hard for me because I had a bet in that game to go back and remember that Seattle in that second half against the Rams quite literally had 1 first down and looked like the most broken offense I've ever seen in NFL history.
Yeah.
It's just hard for that memory to kind of escape me right now. And so,
they may have won in Detroit, but required 3 turnovers by Detroit to get it done as well. So don't forget
and
that.
You have Arizona still. Any team that has the Cardinals twice, if you get the Cardinals twice, I'm almost holding on to you because that's always an out each and every week, right? It's always an out to just play against the Cardinals. And so,
I agree.
That's kind of my route here. So for me, and this is specific to because of the contest that I'm in, Jacksonville number 1 for me for sure. Baltimore number 2 for me. Then Kansas City would be number 3. Strictly saving San Francisco and Dallas because of future value. But Steven, I think that still holds true for me, even if I wasn't in this contest, because again, San Francisco and Dallas have so much future value considering the schedule and the teams that they play along the way. There is a 3-week stretch that if you had to, you could play Dallas. They play the Giants, they play Carolina, and they play Washington in weeks 10, 11, and 12. Having a team in which in any of the 3 weeks you would feel comfortable playing them is just such a valuable tool to have in your back pocket that I think playing them this week is just, you're not being completely EV if you're doing that.
I agree with you. Those are my top 2. I like Jacksonville, Baltimore number 2 for me. And if I'm going a little bit contrarian, I guess Seattle, but kind of a big dividing line there between number 2 and number 3 because of your point about 2 games in the pocket against Arizona down the road here. So usually do a top 3, but I think it's a clear top 2 for me this week.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Again, everything we do, absolutely free. So if you want to go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below, thumbs up. We do appreciate that. And then let us know in the comment, who are you playing in Survivor this week? What team is going to be the team of death as well? Steven, what team is going to knock out a whole bunch of people this week? If I had to guess of the 5 teams that we talked about, strictly based off process of elimination, I don't think Baltimore loses, but I think they are the most likely to lose of the top 5 teams that we talked about. So possibly the Ravens would be the team of death for me, I guess, this week.
Look out for Buffalo this week, too. I'll say that. More on the Mega Pot on Friday.
Just throwing it out there. Boy. Here we go. Here we go. Of course, guys, as Steven mentioned, head over to the site. You can take in all the stuff that we have over there from a written side as well on that. We're talking Survivor bets, everything, all that in the Discord. You can find that in the upper right-hand corner. And as always, good luck on your Survivor picks here in week 3.